Now, joining us, our speaker is someone who, in fact, has prioritized in integrating survey data, administrative data, alternate data sources in a statistical, robust way while also maintaining privacy. We have a very interesting leader joining us right now, a very interesting discussion in store. I'm going to request all the ones who are standing right near the stage area, please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon we have with us Dr. Saurabh Garg, Secretary, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Government of India. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. And to spearhead this fireside chat, we have none other than Shri G. Padmanabhan, former Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a loud round of applause? Please take your seats. Let's have a loud round of applause. And with that, Padmanabhan, sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. Two challenges. Data itself is a challenge, and talking about data at lunchtime is a second challenge. But this is becoming quite an important topic in terms of the data being treated as a public good. But I would probably add to say that it has to be treated in a responsible manner, which will ensure that we get the benefit of data to usher in both inclusion and innovation. Now, this is the topic that we will try to elaborate further during this fireside chat, for which I have with me Dr. Garg, Secretary, Government of India, who handles the data. Probably when I start off, I would request him to give you an idea about what exactly is his role and how important is the government data, both in terms of the availability and the consistency of data, before we go and discuss the other topics. Now, as I said, the catchword is responsible data. But Mr. Garg, if you can tell the audience as to what exactly is your role and how important is this role in terms of ensuring consistency of data, then we can go and start our discussion.
Thank you. To give an idea, I mean, this is a common problem that many people think that the Ministry of Statistics only exists in Harry Potter novels. So we actually have, and our tagline for our ministry is data for development. And I think that sums up our objective and our mission. One of the aspects is obviously we are a major data collection mechanism of the government. All the different macroeconomic parameters, whether it's the GDP or the inflation or the industrial statistics, those are indicators that we bring out based on various surveys and market analysis that we do. But what is perhaps relevant for the audience out here is the fact that one of our roles is also how to harmonize data across Government of India, across different ministries and departments, as also of the state governments. So by harmonizing, I mean that it should be interoperable, it should be machine readable, it should be comparable across different departments. And some of those activities include having a metadata structure which is defined and harmonized, having quality standards and a quality assessment to ensure that it follows a basic quality mechanism, having classification and standardization of terms and definitions so that two different data sets of two different ministries or departments can be compared, can become interoperable. So I think that's a major activity in terms of ensuring that data becomes machine ready, if I can put it. You can also call it whether it becomes AI ready, how to ensure that the data of the government, so that doesn't happen that official data which is credible, which is clear, and which gives the, if I could put it, the accurate picture of the economy that is available for different mechanisms. And the second part, which I mentioned earlier, is also to develop the different parameters and indicators of the macroeconomy.
Thank you very much. That must be indeed challenging for a country of our size. And obviously, as you know, I think many of the big firms come into this country not for the transactions or the charges or anything, but the availability of data. So the data becomes quite critical, and the consistency of data even more important. So I think this is a very important part of the.
Absolutely. And our objective is to ensure that the data which is it's available on a timely basis, how to make it more frequently available, and obviously the accuracy and the validity of that data. So these are important aspects. Just to mention that the labor market data, which used to be available on a yearly basis until recently, now is available on a monthly basis. So you know what are the kind of skill levels available and where there is higher employment and where are the gaps. So in our different activities, inflation is anyway available on a monthly basis. We collect data across more than 1,100 markets in in different areas and put it together. And similarly, on the industrial part, it is available monthly. GDP growth rates are available on a quarterly basis. But in general, our focus is what can be become, how frequent we can make the availability of this data.
Mr. Garg, when we look at this topic of data as public good, I think what is equally important for the government or the regulator is the data protection, which becomes good for the public. Now, these may look apparently contradictory, but as you know, the ancient wisdom says that what is the greatest good can turn into greatest evil. So I think we have amazing examples of, let's say, Aadhaar or account aggregator framework, which have provided amazing experience to the customers. At the same time, I think there is a lot of complaints about the calls which keep coming to the public at large about offering various kinds of services because the protection is an issue which is something which probably every country is struggling with, but we are yet to tackle. So what would be your views on that?
Yeah, so on the one hand, having data is extremely crucial for a lot of startups, companies, and because that will enable targeted products can be developed. And in fact, for the government also, it's extremely important because then you can target the delivery of services so much more accurately. At the same time, anonymization of the data is extremely necessary to maintain the privacy or the personal privacy. And therefore, informed consent is something which is built into the frameworks. You look at the Aadhaar Act, there is a clear that consent and purpose has to be there, that the data is only used for the purpose for which it has been collected. And that permeates across all government agencies. We have the Collection of Statistics Act, where for the past 75 years, we have been going to individual households, getting details of the kind of products that they are consuming, and that's how we come up with these household consumption expenditure surveys, which give an idea of what are the different products that are being consumed. But when we put that data out in the public domain, it is anonymized so that you can't trace it back to any particular individual household. So similarly, we have the recent DPDP Act also, which takes care of that. So it's something which is built into the government frameworks. But there's obviously data which is picked up by the social media, which is something between an individual and the particular media framework. And they too have to follow broad guidelines, which are something which I think the government has a constant engagement with them on that. But I can say that whatever government data that is collected, whether it's even the GST or any others, the issue of anonymization and putting the data at a sufficiently aggregated level is necessary and is done. The challenge, obviously, the balance has to be maintained that the data should not become so much aggregated that it cannot be useful for data analysis. At the same time, the privacy aspect has to be kept in view.
Mr. Garg, let me stay with this topic for an issue which has become, I think, a constant source of irritant for all of us. It may not be relating to the government data per se, but today we have a situation, for instance, I mean, I'm speaking my personal case where if I go for a checkup, any kind of a medical checkup, let's say I did a blood test done for any kind of thing, immediately next day I start receiving solicitations for various medicines and remedials. Now take a more important issue like your insurance of your vehicle getting expired in next 60 days. I think any insurance company which is available in this country starts soliciting the renewal. So there are issues with regard to the data privacy, maybe not with the government, but at the government level, is there any thinking in this regard as to how to make this law enforcement and customer privacy probably stricter to make sure that these irritants are removed?
Yeah, I think there is already the Personal Data Protection Act, which has been passed in 2023, and its implementation is under progress, and how to. So once that is fully operational, that has issues of informed consent. It has responsibilities on the data fiduciaries who collect the data. It has an adjudicatory mechanism that is built into the Act. And there are graded responsibilities of the different agencies out there. So I think that would, to some extent, help. But in these kind of cases, just like in the Consumer Act, which is there, the consumer or the person giving out the data has to be aware of where that data they are releasing and what is the consent mechanism. So that, no doubt, one has to be aware of the issues. But this is something which is work in progress. And as far as government data is concerned, or whatever government collects, I think there are well-set guardrails to ensure that this kind of things don't happen.
See, for instance, in overseas, if you start receiving solicitations, I think there is an omnibus button called unsubscribe, right? Unfortunately, this never works in this country. Now, I think this is something which if I remember, the year before last, I had flagged it to Minister Vaishnav also when he had come. Why is it that we are not able to make the actors actually comply with some of these rules and regulations?
I think that's what I'm saying, that there are specific acts. For example, the Aadhaar Act has a clear mechanism to ensure that the Aadhaar number, when it's displayed, it is masked and only the last 4 digits are displayed, so that there are no such issues out there. I mentioned about the Collection of Statistics Act. I mentioned about the Data Protection Act bill, which is now an act. So these are areas where there are clear guidelines. And let me also mention that there is this in the National Data Dissemination Framework. There are 3 categories of data. One is data which is to be in the open domain, which is accessible to everyone. The second kind of access is a kind of registered access, so that whoever is accessing that data, they have to register themselves, so that in case one needs to trace back, it's possible. And the third is a restricted access, so that data which has greater concerns related to privacy would only be given to agencies in a restricted manner, and necessary non-disclosure agreements are signed. So this is enforced. This is a guideline which already exists. And this is something which any data which is handed over to a government agency is taken care of. It has to follow these guidelines. So I think that is something which, given the fact that also another aspect of is the cyber security. And there's a very strong cyber security framework. In fact, I was just checking the International Telecommunications Union brings out annually a global cybersecurity index. And India has a score of 98.49 out of 100, and that it has a tier 1 status. And that's because of the kind of mechanisms that exist. You have a CERTAN which takes care of issues related to cyber equity, cyber security. And that is something which is also monitored very closely to ensure that any data that is there in the government domains remains secure and is not accessible to anyone outside.
Mr. Garg, I think I know you for more than 2 decades. And I know that you have moved from to different verticals in the government. And one thing which has always impressed or amazed me is that wherever you go, you try to bring about improvements as far as that particular vertical is concerned. Now that leads me to the next question, which is with regard to the data quality. So data quality, particularly coming from the government, is an issue on which there has been a lot of debates in this country. I'm not saying that things have not improved, things have definitely improved, but probably we have a way to go still. And I think given what I just said about your style of working, are you doing anything to make this even better?
Yeah, in fact, that's the main mandate, if I can put it, of Ministry of Statistics. As I started off, that the macroeconomic data of the country is brought out by our ministry, whether it's the GDP, inflation, labor market data, consumption, income levels, etc. And what we are looking at is the entire life cycle of the data, what changes and improvements can be done. If you look at data collection, collection is either done through surveys, which are now all digitized. We have nearly 10,000 people, enumerators, on the field at any given day, and they go to households, they go to enterprises. The data is all collected on tablets. What we are looking at in data collection is how much we can move to web-based portals. For some, we have already started. We just last year did a CapEx survey and a forward-looking CapEx survey on collecting what kind of capital investments are expected by the private sector over the next 2 years, which was a portal-based survey. And we are also exploring other mechanisms. But the fact remains that we want that the data that is collected can, at real time, be passed on to the back-end servers, so there's no time lost. And at the same time, there are built-in validation checks, because if data at the collection stage, data is not properly verified or validated, later on stages, there's only so much that can be done. Apart from that is the administrative data which is available with departments and state governments across different sectors. And I already mentioned about the harmonization that we are trying to do, so that when we are comparing two sets of data, they can talk to each other, they are comparable, and one can draw insights from that. So on the data collection stage itself is one set of activities that we are focused on. The second is on the data processing part, how to ensure that the processing is done using the latest tools available, including AI ML, which can be very well used to get data insights, and ensure that this is done in the shortest possible time. One of the requirements is that in case any data is brought out after a period of a time lag, which varies on the kind of data, there is no point, the utility of that data is lost. Our objective is that if we are bringing out a monthly data, we must bring it out within 15 days of the end of the month. If it is a quarterly at most about 45 days, and if it's an annual, not more than 90 days at the end. Because beyond that, the utility of that for the government or the private sector loses its importance. And the third aspect I would want to mention is on the dissemination part, that we are giving a lot of focus. We've improved our website, and I would strongly urge people if they should go to the e-Sankhiki website, which has a collection of data, not only of what the Ministry of Statistics produces, but over time we are trying to get data from other ministries, and our objective is that the data would be available at each ministry's website, but through API access, it should be available at one place on e-Sankhiki also. So data dissemination is a big focus. We have upgraded our micro-unit portal so that disaggregated data is available in an anonymized form, but that kind of analysis can be done, for example, of what is the kind of consumption behavior of people in a particular region in a state, or how it is changing over time across geographical regions, across income categories, across various other parameters that someone would like to look at. And on the dissemination, we also now have a mobile app, so that people can have access to data on the macroeconomic aspects. And as time passes on, we already have some data on the, for example, the family health survey data is there. We are trying to pull that in. We have obviously on the wholesale price index and the consumer price index, that is already there. Our objective is to look at also what data gaps exist and fill in those gaps by means of different surveys. Until now, we did not have a very good picture of the informal sector of the economy. Now, for the past 3 years, we are doing a regular survey of the unincorporated sector, and that data is available on the website. We've done last on the service sector's enterprises. We did a pilot survey next year, and from the next year, we'll have a regular survey. So apart from data dissemination to ensure that the data is available to industry, to private sector, and we're very happy to collaborate with them if they want to build any products and provide some in a sandbox environment so that they can work on that. And ensure also to get suggestions on what data gaps exist, and we can tweak our labor force surveys, we can tweak our household consumption surveys, and try and get that data which would be useful for the economy, for products to develop, for the private sector to use. So this is something which is a major activity. A lot of the work has been done, and we hope in the next 6 to 8 months to have a different level of macroeconomic data available, which is so much more timely, so much more accurate, and so much more frequent.
Okay, given I'm looking at the time also, I need to ask you, given that so much has happened as far as the data is concerned, two aspects. First is use of this official data for the all-important inclusion and innovation. Now, there are two aspects to that. One is there has been a bit of a back and forth as to the availability of certain databases for the purpose of, for instance, Aadhaar for KYC, right? So there has been a bit of back and forth as far as this policy is concerned. Now, is it something that we need to relook? And secondly, there has been also a clamor for access to a lot more data which is available with the GST or the income tax to make sure that maybe we need to do the anonymization as the way you did, but basically the access to this data, which will again provide the fintech entities for doing much more innovation and also the inclusion. Your thoughts?
So I think just about 6-8 months back, the enablement was done of use of eKYC, Aadhaar-based eKYC for purposes which includes spread of knowledge, promoting ease of living, enabling better access of services. And I think a lot of, in the last 6-8 months, I think it's seen a lot of traction. And it will become so much easier for entities to be able to identify and confirm the identity of the person whom they are onboarding. And I think that's something which, anything data which can help economic growth is something which is definitely a very clear mandate from the government. Regarding other data sets which are available, obviously there has to be a balance between the need to make that data available for useful insights and private sector usage, and to ensure adequate level of anonymity so that privacy is not hampered. And I think that's a balance which is getting developed, and we've been doing a lot of these surveys, and we've used that level of anonymity. And I think a lot of the other data which has recently become available, that's a work in progress to see what level of anonymity is required. Some kind of aggregate data is already made available by different agencies. But as I mentioned, there is a three-tier mechanism, maybe for the registered users and the restricted usage. What further can be done is something we would be very happy to get suggestions also from the industry.
Absolutely.
So
I think this is something on which there has to be a two-way dialogue, because too much of anonymity makes the data useless, but too little makes it problematic. So somewhere the right balance will have to be. Mr. Garg, I think let me come to my final question, which is the theme of this event is the responsible use of AI. Now the question is, do you think that we need to empower our citizens by thinking of AI as a public good? Because to make sure that there's no discrimination between somebody who has some access to AI and others who do not have, do we need to have some kind of empowerment to the citizens where you think of AI, some basic aspects of AI as a public good?
This is something, in fact, data, as I mentioned initially, our focus is data for development. And one of the components of that would be data for making citizens more empowered. And AI would use data. And we need to ensure that AI provides that empowerment to every citizen, every citizen who's there. One of the areas is an area of work. In fact, I don't know whether you're aware, but in February we are having this AI summit, which is a global AI summit, and there are various themes as part of it. And one of the theme of that is democratizing AI, on how AI should not become a restricted usage kind of an activity, but it should be democratized. And I think that's something that we are discussing with a number of agencies, both in the private and public sector. And the use of AI for betterment, for better good, is something which I think different departments, different ministries, and I'm sure in the private sector too, every agency is looking at what can be done to ensure. And the way the compute power is moving, the way algorithms are moving, perhaps you will have a lot more AI available on the edge at a mobile phone, which already is there. What other guardrails are to be done to ensure that there's responsible use of AI, ethical use of AI, and AI usage is democratized, is something I think which is a concern of everyone, and that's an area of discussion that is going on. But I just want to mention a couple of use cases which are already moving in that direction. For example, there is this Padhai with AI, where it's an AI-powered personalized learning platform to tackle people who are not so good in certain subjects or something, which is there. Similarly, in Gujarat, you have this Vidya Samiksha Kendra, where more than 50,000 schools have this, where it's an education intelligence platform. Similarly, on the health side, you have different initiatives. There's this clinical decision support system on eSanjeevani. So education and health are two clear, quick areas where AI can help people at a large scale, and the benefits of AI would directly be available. And how to tie in with the responsible use of AI is something that would be a discussion with the private sector so that we work in a common area.
So thank you so much. I think that sort of concludes my questions. I think one message I would like to give for the industry is that you are the right man sitting in the right place. As we move forward as far as the AI usage is concerned, please interact with him to make sure that we have the best outcomes. I know we are running out of time, about 14 seconds, but about a couple of questions I am prepared to take. If there is from the public, another 2-3 minutes, I think moderator would allow. 2 questions. If anybody has any questions, please raise your hand. The mic will come to you. Identify yourself and ask your question. Okay, take a mic.
What about energy and water consumption of the data centers? What we are doing for that?
The energy data, to my understanding, there are, for example, a lot of the data sets are available in the public domain, but specific sector-wise is something, in case there are some data gaps that the data is not being collected or it is not being
Our
made available.
energy sectors are consuming so much, our data centers are consuming so much energy and water. What you are doing for that?
No. So I think that's a separate topic that you are asking on what kind of conservation of energy measures in data centers. I can just take it that it is something which is, I think it's a common knowledge that data centers require energy, and that's why the focus on green energy is there in the government, how to increase the green energy total generation through green mechanisms.
Okay, one more question, if anybody. Give it.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm Vineet Srivastava from the Reserve Bank of India. I know that this GDP, that we have a very good mechanism, and now the coverage and the kind of survey we have started of late, recently in the last 5-6 years, is really very, making it very robust. But as far as the state GSDPs are concerned, still the reconciliation of the GDP and GSDP is still at a thing. And the other thing is still the GSDP frequency is still annual. Is there any plan and change that could be made reconcile with and make it the quarterly frequency of GST? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. I'll just mention quickly that one of the areas, and good you brought this up, is to make the data more granular. We bring out a lot of these macroeconomic indicators at the national level. The focus is to make the state level calculations more robust, and more importantly, see that what all can be brought down at the district level. Because I think that's the level which a lot of the private sector would also like to know, that what is the kind of labor market dynamics at a sub-state level, at the district level, how are the price movements happening at different regions, different districts. So that's another focus, and that is something that we are working with the state governments, so that larger number of indicators are brought out not only at state level, but at sub-state and at district level, and in a manner that their robustness improves. So that's an area of work that is ongoing. Thank you.
Maybe I'll take one more question. There were 2 hands which went up from there. Anybody wants to ask any question? Yeah. One last question, please.
So, this is Surajit Mishra from JM Financial. While we are using the data very effectively nowadays, from a consumer point of view, the multiplicity of KYC is really creating a challenge. Is there any thought at the government level to make it singular KYC at multi-regulator level, so that one identification solves the problem, and that solves the consumer's problems on both ends, not just on finance side, but in the consumption side as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something which is, I won't say strictly within the mandate what we are working on, but I would want to comment on that. But all I can say is that is something which is seized. The different regulators are working from what I am aware of it, and maybe Mr. Padmanabhan might be better aware of it. And the fact that we have different, there's a CERSI and other mechanisms have been developed. But I think this is still work in progress, and I can only take note of your concern that we need to make this much more frictionless.
So having said that, quickly, two sentences. One is, I think, latest moves by Reserve Bank of India also, probably the Reserve Bank of India norms are the strictest. I think things are being done to ease this out. This governor has clearly come out with a statement regarding this, number one. And the final, this thing is, please understand that duplicity or multiplicity of KYC is not an Indian problem, that's an international problem. Thank you.